right. Hey, Antoinette.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening. How are you?
I am beat down and exhausted, like just like
These
many
days,
people probably are.
Typical week. Okay.
Yes. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
All right, let's get started. Let me pull up the
Carlos, you
agenda.
look like you're at a amusement park. Where?
who, me? No, I'm actually in my car. I'm not driving. I'm not driving. I'm sitting in the next to the driver.
Passenger seat.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just saw lights and stuff. I'm like, where is he?
He's on the ramp to. You ever see reruns of Wipeout?
Yeah.
They're launching it. Okay.
All right. Ashley.
All right, Ashley, go ahead.
All right, I'm pulling up the agenda. Let's see how this is here. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Carlos, you may have to mute and unmute yourself. The background noise is coming in.
Right.
Oh, thanks.
All right, good evening. Let's go ahead and get this meeting started since we're pressed for time. We're live already, right?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me adjust this time here. We're starting at 5:36. Let me maximize this. Can you guys see the agenda clearly? Do I need to zoom in or we're good? All right, perfect. All right. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Safety and Technology Committee's first meeting of the year. We're going to take a quick roll call here to get our committee members that are currently present. So we have Laser, Warner, Matt, Mr. Ramirez. I thought I saw Diego in there. And Prisco, I think, was there as well.
Yes.
And I will clean up the names after this. And Neil's here as well. Okay.
And you.
And me. Thank you. Yep. Take that. Perfect. The first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and do the selection of the committee chair. So I'm fine if anyone wants to volunteer a candidate.
I nominate Ashley Pineda as the chair of the Safety and Technology Committee.
Second.
Okay.
I turn.
Okay, unanimous, thank you. All right, next one up, selection of recording secretary. Do I have any volunteers? Don't shout at once now.
I propose David Warner.
You propose David Warner. David, do you accept? David declines. Anyone?
I propose Diego Random.
Diego's on mute. Diego, are you confirming nor denying? Is that what it is?
I decline, but go ahead. Put me down.
Put you down? Okay. Thank you, Diego. All right. Perfect. All right. So we have those two taken care of. First things first, this is technically a district committee, right? It's not a board committee. So that said, one thing logistically that it came to my attention a few minutes ago, there was an email I had missed. I just noticed it. I think we were supposed to send out the Zoom link so that the public could join the Zoom meeting directly, right? Because I think it's a district committee, or am I wrong in that one? I don't recall exactly if we've formalized that.
I think it's the streaming to YouTube that needs to be enabled.
I've got us as a board committee. I have safety and technology as a board committee position.
Oh, it is a board committee?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I retract that then. We're fine. All right. So go ahead.
Yeah, because I think because some of the stuff was sensitive that we
Oh,
talked
on the
about.
safety side, right?
Yeah,
The safety
yeah.
side portion
Yes,
of it.
yes, thank you. That's why I'm getting confused. Yeah, because in the
Yep.
past, the technology committee was a district committee.
Correct.
But since
Yeah.
we've consolidated them now, I get it. Okay,
Yep.
perfect. So that
And if there
clarifies
was
that.
something really sensitive and we had to discuss it, you could put us in closed session.
Got it. Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure we're on the same page here. So, okay, so this is technically a board committee. So with that said, we're fine. We are streaming through YouTube, so the community can see what's going on. And if we did need to go into a exec session or closed session just to discuss some safety issues, we will. I don't anticipate at this moment, based on our agenda. It looks like we're more heavily focused today's meeting, really more on the technology side of things. If you all recall, the last time we had a technology committee meeting was several months ago, last year, I think at this point, technically speaking. So this is kind of a catch up. And we do have a little bit of a time constraint. We need to be off of this by 7:15 because there was a special meeting that's coming up immediately after this. So that said, I will stop talking so much and turn it over to Mr. Ramirez so he can give his status of technology report.
Actually, real quick, if we could shoot for 7 o'clock to build in a buffer time, that would be better.
Okay, so 7 o'clock it is.
We can probably cover most of the stuff before because I don't see it in Parker. So part of the security and safety, we might need to schedule for the next one.
Okay.
But I'm going to start with the report from the status of technology in the district. At this time, basically what we have is we're in full remote instruction. We have distributed devices for all the students in grades pre-K to 12. We have, during the summer, we actually figured out a way to schedule the pickup of devices for those new students enrolled in the district. And at the beginning of the school year, we actually had a campaign to actually collect back any devices that needed to be repaired or updated. And we found ourselves with a surprise number of devices that were brought back to the technology department. As you may remember, in the past, based on the statistics, we had a number of between 5 and 8 devices per year that needed to be repaired. We never expected to have a large number during the pandemic. And as a result of the pandemic and the heavier use of devices, in some cases, in some other cases, accidental damage, and in other cases, not so accidental, right? We have about 80 to 90 devices that were returned for repair. Some of these devices were damaged in the screens, screen repairs, the keyboard malfunction, missing keys, which is not a malfunction, it's basically a damage of the device. So we prepare a small, a short summary for you guys, and I'm gonna share the link with you in a few minutes. And basically what it shows is the grouping, right? I'm gonna, with your permission, I would like to share my screen. You need to enable me, Ashley. Or laser.
Yeah, hold on. Let me,
Yeah, it'll have to be laser. I don't see the option for me to do that.
Yeah,
try now, Carlos.
Okay. Yeah. I got it. Thank you. So basically what we have is the following. At this time, the summary of the repairs is basically on this summary for the entire district. We have one device that had a broken charge port device, another one, 2 devices that have broken hinges. We have a screen broken, broken trackpads, damaged hinges. And the difference between a damaged and a broken is the broken is totally unrepairable. It has to be replaced, the whole casing, right? We had damaged OS. Those we actually resolve by, basically power washing the devices. That's the advantage of having Chromebooks. Damaged screen is a smudge or a crack in a corner. Damaged trackpad, loose charge port, it happened. Damaged trackpad, missing a key, loose charging. But as you can see, and I highlighted, I actually put in bold, missing keys or keyboard damage was the largest situation that we have in terms of these Chromebooks that came back for repair. 66% of the ones that we captured during the first installment that we recovered from the parents, 59 devices first, were related to missing keys. So it is definitely one of the issues that we have. And what we did is we put provisions in the contract that we have with the parents and the students that certain type of damages, they will have to honor the copay, the deductible for the insurance. And the deductible is now coming back to us. So we have deductibles that range in between $75 and $125 for the ones with the damage and the screen, right? The screen is totally destroyed. That's basically the basic charge that we get. And also in preparation for the full remote learning, we ordered additional Chromebooks back in July, August, and we're still on back order with those devices. They are expected to arrive by the end of December. We have 150 Chromebooks that we ordered just to keep up with, having new devices for new enrollments and also for new assignments, students that get transferred to our school district or new students. We also recover from the ones that we captured from the parents for repair. We have 39 of these devices already fixed and returned to the district from the repair service, and we are reassigning this week to the students on a waiting list. So I'm going to go to that in a minute. Right now, we have 32 already repaired and reassigned. We had 2 that are in priority for reassignment. Those are 2 requests that came from special education students that we have to honor, and we are working on giving those devices to these students. And we have a total of 51 in the waiting list. So our expectation is that we will be able to attend to most of these, probably 80% of these 51 that are still on the waiting list, with the repairs that we are sending to the service tomorrow. So even though that we're waiting on the 150 new devices delivery, we will be able to actually have all of these covered before the holidays, if everything goes as planned. Our deployment numbers are here, and it basically shows the number of devices that we deploy in pre-K, for example, number of Chrome tablets. And you can see it's 122 devices. There is 131 students in pre-K, so there is a number of students that declined the device because they had something else at home and the parents didn't want to pick up a device from the district. This is also another reality that we have. In terms of devices that were Chromebooks, you have the 2 models, the C740s and the C771s. We actually deploy for grade K 154 of those. Grade 1, 127. You can see the list. I'm going to share this list with you guys. So we will have a total of the devices that we actually distribute in all the different grade levels. We also have teacher Chromebooks that were deployed for all the teachers. In early childhood, we had a number of 10 devices that were distributed to the teachers. Leah Jackson, 24, Highview, 20, RJ Bailey, 36, and Woodlands Middle High School, 76. We distribute devices to every single one of the teachers so they could actually work remote from home. What we are finding now is that many of the teachers are reporting back that they would like to have a second screen, basically to monitor the behavior of the students during the classes online. And we're looking into providing for those devices if that is the case. We don't really have certainty right now in terms of how long the pandemic will last and how long we will be on full remote. If the numbers go better, we probably want to go back to hybrid, but we would like to see, based on the statistics and the feedback from the teachers, how many of these devices we will need and we will have to order. That's the state in terms of devices. I'm going to stop my sharing and we're going to go back to the agenda. So in terms of the devices, our plan worked. Our planning and the distribution and the support that the board gave the technology department and the district to have one device in the hand of every student, it worked. What we didn't planned for, and it kind of surprised us, was the number of devices that got damaged during the pandemic. Uh, some of these were not accidental damage. We need to actually definitely work on that and probably implement a policy, a procedure that will enable the parents to pay for the copay, and that will work as a deterrent. So to also, do the proper care of these devices. Our tech support has been extended beyond the district staff and the students. Now we actually support the families. Our central email team at greenburghcsd.org is available for the parents. They actually reach out to us with every question or need that they have in terms of tech support. And we have a strict protocols to follow in terms of the reporting and the troubleshooting of these devices. Everything is centralized through the email, through the team at greenburghcsd.org email. And we try to enforce that because, the moment that we start capturing information separate from the help desk, the more difficult to attend to these requests is, and we won't be able to do it timely and properly. I have conversations with the principals. The principals provide us with additional lists that they capture from the teachers, and we direct them to put the tickets in the system because that's the right way to do it. So we are actually following protocol in all of this. At this point, we are really looking into providing additional support to our teachers with training. So our plan is the rest of the year, we need to work on specific days and times that we can actually provide with timely support, timely training on Google Classroom and other functions and other applications that we have in the district for those teachers. Um, uh, we also have the need for replacement of devices. And I'm going to try to elaborate a little bit on this. We have the first installment of devices that were purchased by the district about 3 years ago. So in terms of the age of the device, those devices need to start being replaced, not because they're broken, but they're going to become outdated. You probably remember those old Samsung Chromebooks that we provide for Richard Bailey School. All of those are outdated. However, we were able to figure out a way to make them work with the actual Google Meet, with the new applications that are enabled in Google. But that's like a workaround. We want to be sure that we can provide for new devices for the students so they have the latest technology in their hands and they can learn using these devices. We're working in getting all of these status by age, by model. We will get the actual numbers, and then we will start putting that in the budget. Right now, we're working on the budget development. We will report back to the committee and what are going to be those needs. Additional needs will be for devices that are associated with the remote learning, like the document cameras. That's another request that we are receiving from the teachers, and also the additional monitors. I'm going to stop right there on the in terms of the status of the technology in the district, and move into the questions or comments. You have any questions?
Sure. Are we doing anything Wi-Fi wise to support kids at home?
Definitely, yes. We already started that in July. We were directed by actually it came on a board meeting, and then the superintendent of the school directed us to provide with access to the internet for families in need, basically families that were in free and reduced lunch or Title I categories. So what we did is we actually worked with Verizon Wireless, and we got devices that had the internet already enabled. Those are LTE Chromebooks. We got a total of 49 devices. Right now we have distributed and deployed about 20. So it's very, we are very, very strict on the evaluation of the requests. We also have hotspots, like Wi-Fi hotspots. So what happens if there is a family that have 3-4 children with devices? We don't collect back those devices. We just provide a hotspot that will be able, and they are unlimited internet. So they are good for more than one user. If it's one student, what we do is we recover the regular Chromebook, we provide with an LTE Chromebook, and we reassign that one to the waiting list. So we are working, recycling, and repurposing our devices as much as we can. But obviously, the demand is great, especially with the full remote learning. Any other questions?
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. One is, so I think you mentioned in your report something to the effect about deductibles. I might have misheard. Who did you say were responsible for the deductibles?
So the district pay for the deductibles up front because we pay for the full coverage.
Okay.
However, we have to send devices to a repair service, and we actually get the amount that should be the deductible. Now, based on our contract with the parents, if there is an accidental damage because it needs to be evaluated on the device, obviously we cover for that, and there is no responsibility from the parent. But somehow we need to start working on some sort of a responsibility sharing between the students having the devices and the parents providing for the proper care of these devices. We found that there are devices that were destroyed. When I say destroy, I mean somebody slammed the device, broke the hinges, broke the screen. So evidently that wasn't an accidental damage. And in that case, what we're doing is basically identifying this as disciplinary situations and working with the schools. But if we establish that for those cases, like for example, if there's a broken screen and you can see that it's not accidental damage because it's not a scratch on the corner, there is no evidence that there was an accident, well, then they need to pay for the replacement of that screen, and it will be $125. If it's a keyboard that is totally ripped off, definitely they need to replace that keyboard and it will be $75. So we are getting kind of like a structural price for the copay. And I'm asking the committee what will be the feedback, because this is just an idea of how we can actually work on deterrence for those behaviors, right? Or do we want to just keep on going on the responsibility by the district on recovering and repairing these devices and just no questions asked? Definitely there is a situation with behavior, right? And in those cases, we would like to have the power to enforce the contract and say, you have a responsibility to pay for this, not actually the device, but just pay for the copay of the repair, the replacement of the screen or the keyboard.
Okay.
I know it's a difficult decision, but I just want to put it on the table. We have not done any of this. We have not contacted any parents yet. We are evaluating based on the results of the capturing of these devices that were returned. But we're asking for your advice on what would be the best way to approach this. Now, we did make the provision in the contract. If you read the contracts that we signed with the parents, it has a provision that there will be a copay depending on the damage of the device or the need for a repair.
So, I mean, my thought is if there is a contract, then of course, I think that's reasonable to want that to be followed. But for me too, I do wonder, and I don't know, which is why I'm about to ask the question, did we provide training, that type of support, training on, just how to care for the different devices? Did we do something along that lines for families?
We did multiple trainings with the families. Even we provided with a training in Spanish for those Spanish speaking families in the district. And at the end of the training, it was dedicated to Google Classroom, but we mentioned the care of the devices because the devices that we have are Chromebooks. And it was mentioned to them. It was reinvigorated that we want to be sure that, these devices I care for, because these devices are to go with the student until the student moves to the next school and the next school. The life expectancy of these devices are 3 to 5 years. Now, I gotta tell you, 3 years, some of these devices look like new. It all depends on the care. And they're very sturdy. They are not to be, they don't break easily, right? Obviously, there are cases where you have malfunctions, software issues or something, or just the device can, not correct for an assembly. But what I'm referring to is those cases where we can actually identify that there was intention to destroy the device, to damage the device. So it will be similar to the disciplinary cases that we have when we're in a school. If somebody comes and breaks a computer in a computer lab or in the library area, it has to be referred for a disciplinary action, and there is some responsibility on the repair. We haven't done that in the past, but I can tell you other districts in the region, they do. And it works because it's selective, it's not a massive approach is just for those cases that merit to have that kind of enforcement.
The only thing I would just add, I mean, like you said, it's in the contract. It was mentioned. I would probably add, since this is the Safety and Technology Committee, it would be, and maybe this already exists too. Maybe we need to have like some sort of like PSAs, reminders, videos that we send out to parents to say, to families saying, hey, this is the care that needs to be taken, and this is what damage looks like. Just something that is a reminder, something that's informative. Those are my thoughts.
Absolutely, absolutely. What I want to take that into consideration, and we will definitely work on reminders. We can probably do something monthly.
Yeah.
A paragraph, same like we do with this screener, right? We just send a reminder to everybody and say, don't forget to unplug your Chromebook every night, do proper care, clean the screen, with a soft cloth, things like that. Very, very, very like a set of 5 tips for good care of the device. We can do that. And
5 tips, and definitely hone in on what purposeful damage looks like, and what may follow that, which is a fee.
Absolutely.
But I know you guys will work with the rest of administration, and I mean any other committee members could definitely chime in as well. I do have 2 other questions, so I won't say anything else about this unless somebody else has something.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add is it would be helpful, I think, if we can see the fees like on a chart and a few examples ourselves of some of the stuff that you've seen come in, just so we get a better idea of what we're talking about here. And,
I agree.
And I agree with everything Antoinette said. I think that would be helpful. And even as part of those communications, to her earlier point, putting in the fee, hey, if you guys break the keyboard by accident, I mean, not by accident, intentionally, you're ripping keys off, this is what it costs. I think that will go a long way to make it clear to the community, wait a minute, no, these things really are expensive, and we got to take care of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I also definitely I'm gonna craft something, and I will share with the committee as well, so we can start fresh, maybe after the holidays, and start those reminders, friendly reminders, just to keep everybody on the loop on this, because the need and for where it's basically showing respect to the taxpayers' money, because it is a big investment, and I appreciate the support that the board gave us, and that's what I'm bringing this to your attention. I also saw in the chat that you mentioned about some teachers that using their personal devices is by choice. All the teachers got a Chromebook assigned. The ones that didn't get a Chromebook assigned are the teaching assistants. I had to be clear because, there is a difference. Now, when I inquired with central administration for advice on what to do, the response that I got is the priority are our students, the second priority are our educators, and then we will look at the rest of the staff, support staff. For those cases where there's a service provider for OT or special education services or anything like that, those are dealt with case by case. And as you know, we have funding through the PPS department for assistive technology, that is to create the compliance with the IEP. So if a student or somebody that is a service provider needs a second device, a second screen, a large display, or a large keyboard, the funding is there and should be available to cover for that on an emergency basis, and we do it. I gotta tell you, my staff are so dedicated to this. The best example is our network administrator actually trading his iPad for one student in the special ed department, just to be sure that we were providing with the solution immediately, and then we put the order for a replacement. So it's important that our priority are our students, and that's how we are working. Just so you know.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so my other 2 questions is, one, this is probably more of, I'm not sure. I mean, Carlos, you might know a little bit more. I'm thinking about 2 sort of things. Do we have something that, and if we don't, what do you think about getting some sort of, do we have something that evaluates the whatever digital programs we're using for remote learning to see how effective it is, how much our staff member, you likes them, how our kids are faring with them as well. Like, is there something like that that sort of evaluates the remote learning program that we're using, whether it's Google Classroom or I know that there may be other items as well.
Yeah, we have tools that we can use for that. The first one that comes to mind based on what you just mentioned is the surveys. We can actually enable surveys at the level of the students, teachers, and then families, and capture their feedback on. I give you an example. iReady. It's a large undertake for us. We just had our district proctors, Diego Rendon and Lori DeAndrea, conducted the assessment in all the schools, grades K through 8, finishing just this past Friday. And we're now working, gathering all the data, all the assessment data to provide with reports to the parents, because that was a promise from the board, from the training with the parents, from the administration. And our goal is to, fulfill that promise. That report is in the making. So I will say that what we can do is basically establish that the tool to measure the impact of the digital curriculum could be the survey, and it could be the data analysis on the progress that the students have. That's why iReady is so critical, because we don't have any other assessment tool right now. We have no measures. The state is suspending most of the assessments. As you know, the regions for January are already suspended, and there is a good chance that 3-A assessments will be suspended, even though that we're still working on preparations, because we haven't been told that it's going to be suspended. But having iReady at the beginning of the year, like we just did, we can do another administration in the middle of the year. It's called the MOY, middle of the year administration, and we can do the end of the year. And then you have 3 measures to actually compare and analyze in terms of the progress of the students and the rate of success. In addition to that, you can also, survey the teachers and see what the responses are. I gotta tell you that we've been very aggressive in trying to provide professional development now. The fact that we have the Fridays, the social emotional days, provide for an opportunity to have little pockets of time to come to the teachers, and because everything is remote through Google Meet, and provide with training, for example, a refresher on iReady. How do you use the data? How do you repurpose? How do you implement interventions? And we're working side to side with Dr. Reynolds, who's been instrumental in all of these, uh, providing through BOCES, getting all the support. So that's probably the best way that you can actually measure the success of the digital curriculum. That would be my feedback. Just David.
So iReady is ELA and math.
ELA and math, correct.
Okay, so there's not a science test, there's not a social studies test that's standardized. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but for social studies, we have now casual learning. So casual learning is implemented in the high school, middle and high, and it's an exceptional tool for social studies and all the other subjects, but they are using it specifically in, my understanding is in the middle school for social studies. Now, we also learned today about defined learning, which was one of the STEAM programs that was in place for science. And Dr. Reynolds is working on evaluating that to be implemented district-wide. So our goal right now is to have as many tools as possible to provide for our teachers so they can, do the best in the remote learning,
Mhm.
I'm gonna turn to Diego Rendon to give us, you have another question there? Go ahead.
I did have one more question. It still ties a little bit to, and I get, let's say about, the surveys and capturing feedback, that's definitely important from students and staff. I'm still thinking, I don't have a specific tool, but I'm still thinking about something that really, I guess iReady is it. Just wanted to make sure there's something that's really clear that really has the ability to evaluate the effectiveness of the program. Yes, getting the opinions from students and staff is really important, but I would really want to know what staff, I think especially staff, what they really think about what is working about it, what they see, what measures are really great, and what areas needed for improvement. My last thing is just about as we know, of course, January Regents exams have been, for lack of a better word, I can't think of it, yes, canceled. At this point, my question is, and I know I've read something the other day and I saw something on the news about what we all know, COVID drain is happening. And so what are we doing technology wise that will help us really get a good sense of where our students are at? We know that, you know, there's going to be some struggles and probably some areas of improvement that's really needed, but are you guys thinking about any technology that really is going to tap into the drain that our students have been going through, and how we're going to help them catch up and do better?
Yes, definitely. And I want to thank you for this, Antoinette, because being the president of the board and the two board members, two ranking members in our committee, I gotta say, we understand that technology is infused in every subject now. So technology is present. It's not like a technology is a separate item. The curriculum, the digital curriculum is one of our priorities. And Diego is going to talk a little bit. He's our instructional technology coordinator. As you know, I reorganized my department to actually prioritize serving instruction. So we not only have a inventory of tools that we provide to the teachers, but we will prioritize those that can provide with the data, quality data, meaningful data for the board, for the central administration to evaluate where we are. And you know, if there is something that is not working, doesn't mean that we need to just toss it around. We need to look at why it's not working and see if we can actually, maybe it's training, maybe it's the device, maybe it's the technology, maybe, you know, look at the root cause of the issue. With your permission, I'm gonna ask Diego to actually interject on this, unless you have other questions, Ashley or David.
Go.
Please proceed.
Yeah, Diego, you're on.
Okay, so in terms of instructional technology, we did have to react in terms of providing tools back in the spring that would facilitate basically instruction to continue as we knew it. I mean, teachers were using Google Classroom already for the most part, especially at the upper grades. They relied heavily on it on a daily basis to assign work and so forth. And there was a learning curve for other teachers that were just not using the platform. So that was a big hurdle that we had to deal with basically overnight. I mean, I remember the first training session I did, I had 90 something teachers in there because they were trying to get a grasp on how to use Google Meet. You know, I remember that being early March. That was one of the first sessions that we did. So I can say that we've come a long way from that moment across all grade levels. And so we were definitely prepared by having the one-to-one program already where we were. So that was a big advantage that we had. We were not scrambling to deploy devices to our district. We were just scrambling to use devices to our potential. So we already had a lot of online resources, a lot of programs that were already in place that were web-based. So we were basically carrying on using those. And then we brought on some new ones to facilitate that remote learning. For example, one that comes to mind is Kami. We needed a way to allow kids to work on PDFs, right? So a teacher was assigning work in PDF, and we needed kids to be able to just fill those PDFs and submit them back. Kami was a tool that we found useful for that, and to this day is one that is heavily used by teachers because it allows a student to basically do their work on the PDF, submit it back, and the teacher can review it. Heavy use of all their online tools, BrainPop, a lot of video, a lot of reading content. We originally were not going to use discovery education because it was low usage. Well, things change, and now all of a sudden it is back on. We had to put it back on as a service, and it's also heavily used. iReady, iExcel, again, tools that teachers were using as add-ons to their regular curriculum, if you will, sort of switch over to their main curriculum because of the, again, ease of use, familiarity from a student standpoint. So there was no learning curve from the students. It was just, you used to use iExcel as a supplement. Now it is used sort of your primary curriculum, if you will. And so we were prepared and we made some changes to where we needed to. Something as simple as Chrome extensions to allow screen recordings and that kind of feature. We also enabled, of course, the other side of this whole thing, and something that was very important, security and data privacy. Everybody was offering free software back in the spring because they wanted to provide for people and so forth. And so we needed to make sure that the free software, quote unquote, that we were getting was not just data mining, and come July 1st, it was going to be, you know, a lot of money to use the products. Also, sticking with Google, we were already established as a Google district, so that also helped us tremendously. We did not have to pick a platform and or start from scratch in that regard. As we've seen, Google has evolved quickly. It was not at the level of Zoom, but now it is. As of today, I can tell you that there isn't a feature that's not available in Google Meet compared to Zoom. So even Google reacted quickly to the need of the users. So the tools are there. The kids use the tools. The teachers use the tools. I've been able to kind of participate in observing teachers using tools and the students. And there's a lot of different variables that are beyond our control, right? Internet access, power. It's happened to me when I'm working from home. My power goes out or my internet goes out. There's only so much we can control and that we can do remote, right? If you have a physical issue with your device, there's not much we can do remotely. But if it's software, we try to troubleshoot remotely for everybody, students, parents. A lot of times the parents are the ones that reach out, and or even teachers, right? They get so used to their environment, and then something happens, and that's where we step in. So yeah, we work longer and harder when we are remote. That's definitely a fact.
What is important, if I may interject on this too, is the ability to reach out to the community and do trainings, because we have been working actively with the PTA. For example, Diego is, is a known presenter on PTA meetings. We try to interject with the families, attend to their questions. We just trying to make ourselves available to the community, ensure that, whenever they have a question, there's somebody to attend to that. Something else that I want to add to that is when we talk about the digital divide, which is a term that is used in education, the digital divide is not only the access to internet, the access to devices, but it's also the equitable access to learning online, learning remote. And for that, you need training. Training is probably the biggest demand right now from our teachers, because you can implement 5 programs. You don't properly train your educators, it's not gonna make the mark, right? I know David had a comment or a question. You raise your hand. Yes.
Sure. So there are programs that are across the board at each grade level, and then there will be specials. So, for example, if my chemistry teacher finds some application that they think will help to teach kids to balance equations or whatever, what's their procedure? Because I know we have standardized configurations. What's the procedure for getting that into the hopper? How do you make sure that it's safe? and how do you allow them to use it? And if there are budgetary requirements, how do you deal with that?
So obviously the channel that we use, the protocol that we use is to put a ticket in the help desk. You know, and there are moments that teachers reach out to us, and Diego can talk about this more. Is a special need. You know, I have a special activity that I want to do with my students. I would like to support for that. A virtual trip. You know, they want to travel somewhere in the world and they want to use Google Maps or they want to use Google Earth. And it's available to them, but they want the expertise of somebody from like our instructional technology person to assist them in the process, to help them with the translation. Remember that we have that particular situation here. We have newcomers to the district that are students that don't speak any English. They only speak their native language, and they feel more comfortable when they get the directions in their language. And the teachers, many of our teachers also are bilingual, but it's always good to have also the techie guy behind all of this that can speak the language. So we do as much as we can, and we also use the tools that we have, like Google Translator and the translation services. I don't know if you noticed, but most, if not all, of the communications that go to the community now are translated into a second language, which is Spanish, because it's largely present in our district. And we have also we have the availability of doing translation in other languages per request. We can do it with Google Translate. Laser is being instrumental in trying to work on trying to make this something automatic in the website. We are not there yet, but we're working on it. So, as we go, we had to attend to the priorities.
Okay.
Anything else,
Good.
Diego, you want to, anything else that you want to add, Diego?
Second question, how's the budget?
Good. Just to add to Mr. Ramirez's answer, there are two pieces to a tool. So a teacher says, like you said, oh, I want to use X, Y, or Z. Data privacy and security, we have to look at that. Just because they found a tool or an extension or a product doesn't mean that just, what kind of information is it sharing? Is there any student information being shared? All right. Is it account based? How are you authenticating? Is it just sign in here? Or that kind of thing. So we take a look at that. And then we take a look at how we can integrate that tool or program to our system. We rely heavily on ClassLink. ClassLink is our single sign-on platform. So if we can make it easy for students to get to a tool, we enable that that configuration, that setup, if the tool allows it or supports it. And because again, that increases ease of use and the actual student involvement of using the tool, right? Up until we had ClassLink, there were unique usernames and passwords for all different types of titles. So that was a big move that came in really, really handy, especially when we went down to the lower grades, right? We have to remember, we have our K1s now logging into their own Google account. So we were able to modify their ClassLink dashboard to just have the tools they needed rather than all these available tools that they would just click on and just get lost, right? So it's an intense process because you have to make sure you vet the product in all these different categories before you say yes.
So what's the turnaround time? Is it like a semester or is it quicker or slower?
No, we try to do it within days. I mean,
okay.
A lot of times when a teacher finds a tool, you're able to check with other districts using it, reviews on that, or even other colleagues in other places, or even, you look on Twitter and all you got to do is just a search for the name and you're either going to find if it's worth it or not, right? So, and you got to go through that. So if it's good, we enable it, we configure however we need to. And if it's not good because it doesn't meet one of these standards, then the teacher is, told of that and why. It's not just I decided or anything. No, we have the documentation or the reason why we don't recommend or we don't allow the use.
In most cases, just to interject, in most cases, the premise is remember that anything free costs your data. So your data is the cost. You know, they give it for free because they know that they're going to capture data from the students, from the teacher. And we have resources with the Lower Jackson Rig, a full list of software in the region that is vetted and all that. So it's like Diego said, it's a 48-hour turnaround because we look at the list. If it's already adopted by another district, there is a resolution, and there is also the proper documentation that supports that with the data privacy requirements. Is okay. So we rush to enable it and to facilitate for the teacher among the parameters that we have. But if not, we also provide with a reason why not.
And if there are alternatives, you will provide that too.
Of course. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
How's the budget?
How's the budget? So we experienced, interesting reduction in our budget last year. Everybody were affected, even though that technically there was no reduction. There was a reduction. There were several lines that had to be spread out among the buildings, and in that process, we actually got less amounts assigned to the Department of Technology. We are working, and we will submit to the committee our first draft of the budget request that we're putting with the business office. The first round is already in progress. The most important need that we have in terms of budget is the replacement plan. The replacement of those devices that I mentioned, the ones that are aging, and it's gonna demand probably another 300, 500 devices that need to be replaced in the short term. We will also do the same thing that we did before. Remember, we provide for more than 1,000 devices based on a lease. So what we did is lease to own. It's a financial instrument that permits that instead of buying 300, I buy 5 times of that, and I get all the devices in place for the cost of 300 and divide in 3 years, and then we just paid it off. So we're looking at the different options, but it will be in our budget proposal. We are running on probably close to the $2 million proposal for this year. We're trying to be very exercising our due diligence and looking at the most cost-effective approach, because if there is something that we can get a lower price, we will do it. But we don't want to sacrifice quality. We need to provide for a secondary connection to our connectivity services with the REC. We only have one point of failure, and this is the highest school. And as you remember, we experienced an issue for a week that was very difficult, and basically exposed the need for having a secondary connection. That secondary connection will come through Leah Jackson, which is a known property for the district, a place that is very stable. We have the space, we have the connectivity that can be placed in there. We just need the devices and the service, the use from the lyric. So we're trying to look at the best way to approach this. And we subscribe to a lot of services with the RIC, so they are going to give us a good deal. We're trying to do as much on cost effectiveness and proper due diligence on this. The other item that is urgent is we're working on enabling our business users, and meaning all the principal secretaries and the business office, to have access to their files in the network remote, which means access on the cloud. Microsoft Office 365, which is familiar to many of the people in this call, is probably the way to go. Microsoft OneDrive for Business is very secure, it's encrypted, and provides the security that we need for the financial data and all of that. We're exploring that option. I charge our network administrator, Laser Alert, to work with Microsoft on this, and we're probably going to have some surprise on how affordable it will be for the district compared to before. Before we were talking about $30,000, $40,000 for this service. Probably now it's going to be under the 10.
Okay.
It's very, very convenient. And because we are fully remote, we can see the value of having something like that. There are other number of items that we want to include in that budget. I will send a draft to everybody in this committee so you can actually see what we're submitting for view. And we will wait on the central administration to, after discussion, what will be the final proposal from the technology department.
Thank you.
Diego, Laser, anything else that you want to add in terms of budget? Okay.
No, I just want to, we can talk about the planning. I just want to highlight the payoff of the planning that Mr. Ramirez has brought to our department. You guys know I've been around for a very long time, and the planning and the pre-planning, we just see it time and time again. It's just paying off, right? Short term and long term. Devices and anything that we try to do. The planning and the pre-planning, it's a good feeling to see it come to fruition and work out. As a taxpayer and as an employee, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, everything Diego just said.
I want to thank everybody because it's not my thing. It's teamwork.
Yes.
You can hear my staff. They're empowered to do their best. And that's the best way that you can actually run a department. And I want to thank also the board, because without your help, we wouldn't have one-to-one devices. My superintendent, the central administration did a lot of this also because we actually brought it to them. But I gotta say, it was a partnership with you, it was a partnership with the central administration, and it was a partnership with the community. The community were so excited to have it. It worked. It worked. We were ready for the pandemic. We didn't know that was coming. We wanted to do this for instruction, for equity access to instructional materials. And look what happened. It actually meant a lot for people being during the pandemic without a device in other districts. I gotta tell you, neighboring districts with wealthier districts didn't have it. They didn't deploy. And they were in the middle of the pandemic trying to figure out how to do it. So the planning worked. And I want to thank everybody, my staff, the board, the central administration, the superintendent, everybody that support this initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. A few quick questions come to mind. On the Office 365 for business users, will we be taking advantage of anything such as Microsoft AIP, which is a protection mechanism in the cloud that you can use to secure data? Or will we just be relying on the Office 365? I'm sure that'll come into the planning, so that's something to consider. As well as the, I know we have some questions that were raised security-wise that we may or may not get to depending on the time. It's already 6:32 and we have to stop at 7. So that was something I wanted to bring up. But secondly, I just want to go back quickly to the training that was mentioned earlier. Both given to students as well as to teachers and our staff. I'm glad to hear that that's all happened. I think we should probably consider doing it again, especially since we just went into remote for those children and that were probably in hybrid mode. They may be a little rusty with some of that stuff, as well as some of the teachers. I have seen on my own that, I know we've given them a lot of tools and different mechanisms such as CAMI and different ways to do things, but there's not a lot of consistency. And I think that may be a combination of the students' abilities or the teachers' comfort levels with those different tools, right? So there'll be a teacher that uses CAMI. Obviously in the upper grades, it's easier for those children because they understand the concept that they can do this all digitally, versus the younger grade children. They may not be comfortable, especially with CAMI. You have to kind of draw out like the boxes, and when you're doing division, that may be something that might be a little more complicated for a younger grade. So maybe a little more training there, especially since we just went remote, I think could be a little helpful.
Absolutely. And let me make a comment about that, because we continue exploring different tools based on grade levels. We do have a lot for secondary, a lot. And we're trying to also provide for early grades. I'll tell you something, it's been bothering us for the longest time. Our pre-K students, they only have 2 resources, Google Classroom and materials that are created by the teachers, and Hatchpads. Hatchpads are similar to the iPads, but it's smaller, basically a game-based learning device. So we came across a free resource called Learning Explorer. What it basically does is a digital organizer of what we already have, like new CLA. We have also other tools in our hands, like learning.com, etc. They all put in a different organization and provide it for the teachers so they can develop their own materials, when they can develop their own lessons. We discussed this with our curriculum team, and we brought it to the table, and we're waiting on Dr. Reyno's decision, but I believe that that's going to happen because we're trying to look for different alternatives that we can provide for our early grade teachers so they are empowered with more tools. And definitely training, anything that gets implemented needs to be associated with planning and training. And that's what been the premise since I got to work with this department. And we will continue on that same route. And you will be informed because we want to keep bringing it to you because we need your support for this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Diego, anything to add? Laser, in terms of the security for Microsoft Office 365, do you want to elaborate a little bit? Because we had that conversation with Microsoft today.
Yeah, we were going to do a follow-up meeting on Azure. Today was just kind of like the introduction of what they offered and what we'll be getting. Was it John? He'll be responding back, and we'll have a follow-up meeting. Yeah, I'm sure next meeting we'll have everything sorted out, and then we'll let you know.
Sounds good. Yeah. AIP is definitely a big thing. I'm hearing about Azure Information Protection Services to try to put some governance around this because that's one of the challenges when you go to the cloud. It's very easy to turn it on.
Yeah, but once it's out there, it's just there. Yeah, can't get it back.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Data security is one of the biggest challenges for everybody because just remember, it's also associated with culture. If you don't have a culture of data security and data privacy, the weakest link is the user. So we need to train the users. We need to do that. And that's probably the best way for the next topic on the data security and all of that. Diego, you want to say something?
No,
yeah, on the just quick on the training. Next week we'll be actually having a training session on Wednesday night for parents at the middle high school in English, and then on Thursday we will be having one fully in Espanol by yours truly for parents as well, trying to increase parent involvement there and engagement. And we've done the workshop before when we had the ENL night. We had great turnout, but again, it just kind of reminding parents, and I can understand the fear of not knowing what's happening or what to do. So by offering it in Espanol, we're hoping to get a little more involvement and just make parents aware of what's happening.
Thank you.
On that note, also, just as another item that we are supporting is IB. Our IBDP and PYP, we strongly support those programs. We actually provide with assistance for the trainings, the meetings with the families. And I gotta tell you, it's exciting. We see how those programs are growing and bringing attention from the public to our district. Because in the region, I gotta tell you, Brendan gets phone calls from everybody trying to kind of like mimic our programs and get the experience that we have in here. So that's another important note. And kudos to Brendan and his team. All those teachers, they're excellent. They're great. And they're vested in interested parties in terms of getting these programs to a good start and successful progress.
Are we going to go to the information technology plan?
The instructional technology plans have been approved by the state and extended for another year. So our next due date will be 2022. What we're gonna do is we're gonna establish a timeline during the times that we have the technology committee, and maybe we can start working on, milestones. What are we doing in digital curriculum? What are we doing for digital divide? What are we doing in terms of infrastructure? Put it together and we just update it in the plan for June 2021. And then we can get engaged on doing the new plan for the 3 years that is due the following school year. because of the pandemic, the state decided to extend the approvals. And our plan was one of the first one that was approved. As you remember, we were very fast in getting all of that together.
When is it due again? I'm sorry, did you say June 2021?
June 2021, we are due for updates.
Okay.
Only updates. And 2022 is when we had to submit a brand new plan for 3 years, which we are ready. We can actually provide with a new plan by the 2021 mark, but they are only requiring updates. And we have updates after the pandemic because we identify other areas that we need to work on, like training, like remote tools and all of that. Do we want to make a reference before moving ahead, since Mr. Parker is with us, I think, about the security? Or
I do want to just add 2 quick things. And you guys will probably know it more than anybody else. I know that at I can't remember which, maybe it is the last board member, community member brought up 2 sort of technology enhancements to I think working with Google and remote learning in general. Do you know if we are using it in our classrooms? And I believe I might mix up the names. I think it's Nearpod and Pear Deck or Peer Deck. So
Peer
I
Deck.
hope I'm not mixing it up, but do you know if that's something that is taking place?
There is a free version of both.
Okay.
It's being used, but it's limited until we get the subscription. So one of the cuts that we have didn't basically prevent us to purchase that Peer Deck, but we did an evaluation on the software. It's wonderful. I'm going to turn to Diego Rendon to go a little more in detail because he was part of that committee, and tell you exactly what we're planning to put in the budget, because we want to put it for the budget for next year. We think that it will be a great tool for the teachers. It's one of those another tools that needs to be in place. Diego.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they, like Mr. Ramirez said, they both offer quote unquote free versions, which lack some of the premium paid features. They are expensive. Nearpod is expensive in itself, and so is Peer Deck. Peer Deck is not available via BOCES, so it would be direct, if you will. So that's why we have to budget for that correctly. It is a tool that it enhances interactive pieces of the education process, but again, there are free versions based on feedback from teachers. When it comes to tools, you need to make sure you get enough buy-in, right? We're not going to go and get a tool for 4 or 5 teachers because they saw it somewhere, right? So we need to make sure that it's a tool that we can use across the board, right, for all our teachers and students, so that we can actually justify the expense, right? I've seen it many times where tools that somebody likes, you get it, and just 2 or 3 people use it because nobody else sees the benefit of it. So we got to be responsible in that regard as well. But they are on the expensive side for the premium version. So it is something that we are looking into, adding to the budget, and hopefully come July 1st, we'll be able to have it full time. Cami was one of those that we had to kind of make the same decision on. We need a tool to facilitate. That was something that went on right away.
So as part of that process, Diego, when you guys start working on the budget, it might be helpful we could get a little more detail as to specifically how they fit in, right? Because to your point, Diego, I'm sure they're expensive, and we have a constraint on the budget. It'd be nice to know exactly what their purpose would be, to see how much overlap there is with other tools, and if we can get by.
Right, yeah. Exactly. That's another point. I mean, some districts use Nearpod, just like we use Classroom as their LMS, right? So it is kind of the same category of software, right? So if I bring Schoology or another LMS, there is some of that overlap as well. So yes, that's a very valid point.
So
So what's
they,
your demo process for rolling things out to the teachers, is having them look and make a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of decision? How does that work?
Well, there are tools that it's actually a very simple thing. You kind of just keep hearing from teachers. Hey, you keep hearing from teachers directly on the same name. You keep hearing the same name from teachers, right? And you go, okay, so there is buy-in from a particular school or grade level. When they meet as PLCs, right? They discuss tools among themselves and
Okay,
come up. As a
That's how-
PLC, we kind of come up with this list and what can we do, or what can we get this, right?
from PLC list. All right, got it.
Yeah, there's a lot of that work that takes place, and then obviously you expand it. So if you start working with, let's say, ELA PLC at Bailey, and then you go, okay, ELA third grade, does that work? Or up, does that work? Is there an overlap, like we said, or is there something that's worthwhile for everybody? And that's more or less how the conversation gets started on that.
So also to make it easier to understand, because I think that the question is valid, how do we actually see the value of this being included in our instructional offering? Peer Deck, for example, is interactivity on content presented to the students online. Let's say Google Slides or Microsoft Slides, PowerPoint. You can do that for a class, but it's not interactive. Peer Deck allows you to make it interactive and provide with assessments. So you get to one of the slides and you can actually have a pop-up quiz question and capture that data into a table. So that's why teachers love it, because for them, it's kind of like an assessment tool as well. And not an assessment from the perspective of just assessment, but it's a check on understanding, right? You want to be sure that your students are getting it. So you say, well, my lesson, let's say an example, 1 + 1 is 2. Everybody got it. Why is 1 + 1 is 2? And then you get the answers and you see somebody say, I thought it was 3. Just, I need to retrain that student because that student is not getting it, or something like that, But the purpose is to identify the needs of the students. And these are the purpose of these tools. NearPad is more comprehensive, as Diego said, it's an LMS. It's a whole learning management system associated with, and that's what is more expensive as well. What we use is Google Classroom, that is very flexible. The advantage of Google Classroom is a platform. So if the teacher wants to use Google Sheets, wants to use Google Slides, you have multiple tools to use, not only one. So that is the purpose that we provide Google Classroom, and now we have Google Enterprise. Actually, we did an upgrade to this, and that's where we have most of the features. But having something like Peer Deck, which is an additional to the slides, that's something we can provide. Having castle learning with quizzes and things that can associate social studies learning, that's another piece. Or working with defined learning to do more into the science curriculum, that's another area. So, like I said, all these tools have one component that is critical for everything: a trained teacher, an educator that is empowered by knowing what to do. So training is key. And that's why we have an instructional technology approach in our department.
Makes sense. Thank you so much. One last question on that, and then we're going to move on since it's already 6:47. When we have that conversation about those additional tools, it'd be helpful to know if Google themselves are working on something similar, right? Because a lot of times with technology companies, company A sees company B's doing this, and next thing you know, company B's got it. So that might be helpful as part of that conversation.
Yeah, we're actually on the boards of what they call early release program, and so we get heads up of what they're working on. Which is why we were kind of informed of what was happening with Google Meet. So we would get when it was in beta and what was happening. So backgrounds, breakout rooms, host controls. So they are actively developing the platforms. They are catching up, if you will, to be able to be competitive. I mean, this is not going to go away. This is here to stay. So we are in the know of what's happening, and Google is one that makes changes every day. I mean, something as simple as the icons being now having round edges as opposed to square edges. That's an update. That's a change, right? a lot of people did not notice that, but that was a change. They changed the icons, right? We knew that weeks in advance because we were part of the early access program. So that's something that we keep an eye on.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. It's 6:49 p.m. Obviously, we're not making it through this whole agenda.
Safety.
Oh, someone's still talking. Who was that?
Safety.
Safety. Yes, that's what I was about to pivot to.
Go for it.
We have 11 minutes left. I feel a little bad that there's only 11 minutes, so I will turn this immediately to Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker, do you want to give your report to the committee? And good evening, by the way.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you. 11 minutes is fine. What I wanted to bring to the committee is that, obviously we're in full remote at this point, so things change drastically as far as the perspective of looking at safety and security in our buildings. I would like to let you know that when we were in the hybrid mode just before going to full remote, from a safety and health perspective, we were looking at things through COVID protocols, making sure things were in place so that our students were safe coming into the buildings, those that were choosing to come and be with us during the day, and also so that the staff would be safe and feel comfortable in administering instruction to the students. With that, through Mr. Falcone, we had additional PPEs and masks available, because every so often you get a student that would arrive to the building that did not have a mask. So we were able to provide the mask for them prior to walking in the building. We would greet them at the front door. And I believe all the schools were doing the same thing as what we were doing at the middle high school. As you are aware, we have Easy Screen in place for both students and staff. The way we do it at the high school is myself and Mr. Smith and the nurse. We greet the students prior to physically coming through the door, and we check that they have completed Easy Screen. They are their parents. When we have students that have not, then we hold them close to the entrance. We don't have them enter the building entirely, and we have them communicate with their parents in order to complete the Easy Screen for that morning. This has worked really well because after a few calls, the parents get the gist that, okay, I really need to do this every single morning for my child, and if not, they're gonna get a call. So it's kind of like we're the annoying factor in the morning, which is becomes a part of their routine, which they do not want. So we've been able to reduce the number of students that require that phone call. So that has worked really well. We've also implemented the appropriate social distancing in the cafeteria in order for students to be able to eat safely. We have plastic dividers that sit on the cafeteria tabletops. So if you can envision the circular table that we have in the middle high school, which in the past could possibly accommodate 6 to 8 students, it now can only accommodate 2, one on each side of the plastic divider. This allows them to remove their mask while they eat lunch. They can do so safely. It also allows us to be able to have like a seating chart, which is new for us in the middle high school, so that if we do end up having a case that's reported to us, we can help with accurate tracking of who that student may have possibly come in contact with. So we now have seating charts and assigned seating in the cafeterias, which is a very new concept for the middle high school kids. But I must say they've adjusted quite well. They've not pushed back with that. And they've also been very, very good about the mask. It's rare that we have to remind the students that they need to have the mask covering their nose and their mouth. They've been wonderful with it. The other thing that we do is when they're moving throughout the hallways between classes, we've kind of come up with a catchphrase that Mr. Postel came up with, is front to front, not side to side. trying to get them to walk almost in a line as opposed to next to each other, the way that they're accustomed to when they are talking and socializing in between classes. In addition to that, we've actually physically put down a line dividing the hallways in half. So one is kind of like a street when we're driving our cars, the yellow line. It happens to be blue though in the school. So one direction one way, the other direction the other way. We try to maintain a single file so that way they're safely moving throughout the building. We've also designated staircases, up and down staircases. So there's only one direction per staircase. So if you remember the layout of the middle high school, that center staircase that goes all the way up to access all 3 floors, that is up. And then the outer staircases are down. So that way we kept it very simple. So after a few days, the students were acclimated with that. We've not had any issues with the staircases or moving throughout the building. So that's pretty much it from the safety perspective when we have the students in the building. Now that they're fully remote, our focus now has shifted to more of the making sure that we help the tech team and the teachers with the connectivity of the students during the class times. So that goes hand in hand with attendance, student attendance. Anytime we find that a student is having any kind of difficulties, whether it be a tech issue or a family issue, myself and the attendance officer, Mr. Darby, we are doing frequent home visits. We call them wellness visits in order to go and check on students and families to see if they need any kind of assistance that we can possibly provide. So we've been doing that on a regular basis too. That's a little trickier because we have to be very cognizant of being safe ourselves, but we are willing to go out into the community, talk with the students, talk with the families, and try to help troubleshoot any kind of issues that they may have. Mr. Warner, I see your hand. Yes, sir.
So is there any overlap with the Chromebook distribution and update or maintenance? Or are those 2 separate calls?
The only overlap that I've been working with Mr. Ramirez and the team is that if there is a case where a family is no longer in need of a Chromebook, let's say the student has withdrawn from the district and we want to reacquire our equipment, I will go out and try to reacquire that equipment. I'm kind of like the bounty hunter.
Okay, so you're stuck in the role of the bad guy. Okay,
Yeah,
understood.
yeah. I'm fine with that. Totally comfortable being a bad guy. So in that way, that's another way that I help support Mr. Ramirez and the tech team, reacquiring some of the Chromebooks.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Barker. I do have one question. For the next meeting, I know your focus is primarily on the middle high school. If possible, if you could gather some information for how their protocols are working in their building, just so that we can have a comprehensive report, that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
No problem. I'll have that for you.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Parker?
Just a comment. I want to thank Mr. Parker. He's taking on that difficult job to help us recover these devices. And what we're doing is also, working closely with him in everything that is discipline in the remote learning environment. We were able to identify now our students that are in learning locations. While they were on hybrid and they were on remote, they were coming every day, everything is available through eSchool Plus. And thanks to the feedback that we get from the buildings, like Mr. Park and Mr. Smith and the principals in general, we were able to identify all of that in our student information system. So now we can quickly find a student, see where they are, what kind of instruction they're receiving. Obviously now we all full remote, but it's critical. Information is the key. And I want to thank everybody and everybody for the buildings as well for their support.
So I'm gonna request that at a future meeting we start thinking ahead to what happens, when people start getting vaccinated. I know we have time before
Yes.
that happens, but that's a future plan on what you talked about planning and training, future plan on what we could report on. Okay, thank you.
We will have to put it as one of our items for planning, because I gotta tell you, schools might be also key elements in the process of getting all the
Distribution.
vaccinations. Yeah. Our health professionals are on top of everything. I gotta tell you, they do reports to the state because of the contact tracing and everything. It's a large amount of data that is managed, and we have EC Screener. We have many tools in place that facilitate for that. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Mr. Parker, as well.
Okay, that said, I want to thank everyone for joining the call this evening. Thank you for making the time. Thank you all who presented. Thank you all who attended. Oh, Antoinette, you wanted to say something?
One more thing.
I have one quick thing. I don't know if I said it before. Pamela Davis, the PTA Council president, did make a suggestion. I wanted to share because I didn't want to forget, because we won't see each other again, I think, until January. But if in talking about just reminding parents and families about the usage of our device, and maybe we can have some sort of message that goes out just as a reminder about the care of it over the break, something like that.
Absolutely, we will do it.
All right.
And
so,
then I have a question in the chat. So like that, Carlos, that's for you. You could take a look at it and respond at a different time.
okay. All right. So with that said, it's 7 p.m. We were requested to end at 7 p.m. So I am happy to report we did that. We will have to pick up the rest of this agenda at our next meeting. Thank you, everyone, again for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Stay
Thank
safe.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.